So welcome. This is Behind the Screen. It's like a GM tips and content creation thing where I'll be writing material for Scion. I am not a member of Onyx Path. I'm a fan. They're just giving me a platform and things like that. There's no official power or weight behind what I say. But my name's Ryan, or Comrade Bubbles, as you can see beneath the webcam. As I was saying before I started the recording, this will be up on YouTube a week from time of recording because subs get access to the VOD first for obvious reasons. Speaking of subs, we're in September, so half price subs are a thing. So if you have a bit of money left going spare, you could do worse than subscribing to the Onyx Path channel. There's also a Kickstarter going on. I'll talk more about that at the end. It was in the pre-roll, which you would have seen a few times. So for Scarred Lands Creature Compendium or something. But I'll talk more about that at the end. There's some copy to read. So as I said last week, in the 2 hours of just... Not last week. Last time. In the 2 hours of me just talking about general GM tips that I wanted... That this is a community thing. So I'll be fielding questions from chat, taking... ideas from chat. Everything that I make will go up on, in this instance, the Storypath Nexus with the line like with help from the Onyx Path Twitch community or something to that effect. If the higher ups, the powers that be, let me, it'll be as a pay what you want because I would like to make a little bit to help me be able to keep doing this kind of thing. But if they're not okay with that, that's fine. I'm happy to do it as a free product. It's just the more people playing the games, the better. As I mentioned last time, I did want to have chat involved and have a visual representation of chat's input. Turns out if you're not streaming from your own channel, the software I use can't plug into your chat and give you a chat plugin. So I'm just capturing the Twitch chat. So that's why you can see the bit boss and everything. Cheer leaderboard or whatever. So if you want to see yourself immortalized on the internet, say hi, ask a question, whatever. I will try to stream for the 2 hours I was supposed to be, but obviously I started late because there's as of starting this stream, there was no mod, and I was wondering if I should wait for one, but time was pushing on. So there we go. So so my name is Ryan. I have a standard disclaimer I will run through before actually getting into the meat of the stream. I am disabled. I do experience muscle spasms, sometimes in the muscles of my throat and jaw, so I can stutter or slur words. So far, it's only occurred once in the 8 months I've been streaming, but I know that when it did occur, a couple of people in my chat found it uncomfortable to see, disquieting. So if it does happen, and it might because I haven't had a terribly great day in terms of that, I totally understand you taking a step back for a few minutes or whatever. I also do sometimes struggle with multiple trains of thought. I hyper focus on something and then struggle to change that subject to my mentally. So if I'm writing something and you ask a question, I will finish what I'm writing and then answer the question. A lot of the time, I'll try to say, I've seen the question, insert username here, and then I'll answer it when I can. Obviously, as this whole community grows bigger, with more questions being asked, I'm going to take my ring off so you don't hear it clicking against the microphone a lot. That will obviously not fall by the wayside, but I'll be able to answer fewer people's questions because there'll just be more people asking them. A couple of things from my end. For some reason, my home phone's been ringing, so if you hear it in the background, I'm not going to answer it. It's just ringing. I don't know why. No one has the number. So, it's fine. It's ringing. I'll ignore it. Hopefully the microphone won't pick it up, but it is sometimes quite sensitive. Okay, so that's all of that. So something I realized that we should probably do is to address the basics. So last time I streamed, I said it was about 2 hours of me just going over general GM tips, so that you could all understand where I'm coming from when writing material and why I approach writing material the way I do. As I mentioned, there are a variety of different GMing types, and if you want to see that is up on YouTube on my YouTube channel. Again, Comrade Bubbles. It's under, I think, Behind the Screen Season 2 brackets Onyx Path, because this is something I used to do on my channel with D&D, and I had to shelf that. Started again here with Onyx Path stuff because Onyx Path is great, and more people should play their games. But to my YouTube channel, probably. I mean, there's nothing stopping me. There's no mods or anything. I'll just post a link to the playlist so that it's less like overtly in your face about the whole thing. I use the same username pretty much everywhere, and I still forgot what it was. Oh, wait, no, I'm still signed in, I guess. That was Onyx Path. Let's do this properly. Yep, there we go. Oh, and chat's popped out. Oh, morning, Plastic Age Plays. Hello. So that should be a link to the D&D thing I talked about. From there, you can. Okay. I got bopped by an automated thing. Never mind. I could post a link, but automated moderation. Never mind. Thank you. So that's my D&D stuff. Obviously, a lot of it is broadly applicable. Thank you so much. Obviously, a lot of it is broadly applicable, and you can follow that playlist to my channel where you will find last fortnight's episode, which is just a summation of general tips and ideas and stuff. So to recap for those who weren't here, I'm all about collaboration. I'm not going to be... Anything that I write will be loose. It'll be flexible. It won't be it won't be exhaustive, but it will be detailed, if that makes sense. So, but I also realize that like every role-playing game rulebook ever, we need to... Some people watching this might not really know what role-playing is. They might be just interested in the idea. So, just brief discussion about that, and then actual discussion about what Scion is. So role-playing is just a conversation. That's all it is. It's not tradition adversarial. Everyone's hopefully there to have a good time. It's make-believe with rules to prevent people saying, I shot you, no you didn't. That's the stereotypical example. It's a great way to spend a few hours. It's great for mental health. But at the end of the day, it is just a conversation between people who are hopefully like-minded. You will find groups that aren't like-minded, and sometimes they make it work, sometimes they don't. It is what it is. I think anyone who's role-played for a decent length of time has stories about groups that they didn't get on with, and I spoke about that last week, so that's that. Role-playing, it's just a conversation, usually with a healthy dose of improvisation from... I'll say all players but one, because the game master, the story guide in terms of Scion, is also a player. They have a little the weird job of everything is improvised, but some of it is improvised in advance by other people. So it's weird, but it's fun, and one of the reasons for this show, content, whatever, is to show you what being a GM is like in all aspects. But at the table, there are plenty of other shows on this website where you can watch, on this Twitch channel, where you can watch GMs ply their trade, where you can see players reacting to the GMs. They're all in the pre-roll and on the offline screen, which is the schedule. So hang around at the end of the stream if you're interested in watching anything, in finding more information about that. So, That's role-playing. It's just a conversation, people having fun, rolling dice, telling great stories. Not even rolling dice in some games, but in this instance, rolling dice, telling great stories, building worlds together. At least to me. Your mileage may vary, as I said last time. Scion, however. So, specifically Scion 2nd Edition is what we'll be doing content for. Scion is urban fantasy role-playing, at least to start with. You play as a quote-unquote child of the gods. The basic setting is the world with a capital W. You know what? Let's do what I did last time. I'm just going to copy-paste my show notes into this... Oh, so many windows open. Into this spiffy blank Google Doc, so there's something to look at. So you can follow along with what I'm saying. So we've covered a conversation. The world, with a capital W. It's our world, but ever so slightly different. Supernatural beings, legendary creatures, and supernatural entities exist. The gods could walk among us. And as you can see, all myths are true. All the pantheons from antiquity. The game doesn't really deal with monotheism, which is, fine. That's a hot topic that I don't think anyone is capable of handling to everyone's satisfaction. But all of the Greco-Roman, so the Theoi, the Egyptian, the Netja, to the Kami of Japan and the Shen of China, and everything in between and around, they exist in the world. I have seen some criticism being like, if they exist, why doesn't everyone worship them? To which I would reply, please read the book. The gods exist, but they don't overtly interfere in mortal affairs. So the world is predicated on them existing and having kind of... And if I get any of this wrong, and someone in chat, please correct me. I am never too old or too proud to learn. Predicated on the fact that the gods do not interfere, but still chinks of divinity, glimpses of the other shine through. So this is where the legendary creatures come in, the kitsune and the satyrs. I will butcher foreign language words just so that we're on the same page. Oni, things like that, do occasionally show up and cause trouble. This is because of the schemes of Titans and Titanspawn. Titans are figures that are opposed to gods, that are on a level with or more powerful than. Not technically all evil, but driven by a singular purpose and goal, and therefore are less mindful of collateral damage, shall we say. And each pantheon in the rulebook, bar one, has its own titans. And that's where a lot of the major antagonistic forces will be coming from in kind of the long term. It's just the schemes of the titans to break free of their prisons. Some titans get rehabilitated. The Shen, I believe, just shove them into the celestial bureaucracy. The Orisha don't have titans. They believe it's just racism. And then there are other approaches to other approaches. Good morning, 307 RPG. So the gods exist, the titans exist, everything in between, legendary creatures exists. All the myths are true. So the sun all at once is being pushed along by a giant dung beetle, being dragged along behind a chariot, and being chased by a wolf, for example. There is no conflict between any of these ideas. They're all true. And because these two concepts of everything being true and the supernatural and other and supranatural bleeding all together into the world is also true, and people do find it, it's undeniable that the gods exist and that the pantheons exist as they've existed for thousands and thousands of years. So there are the beliefs in them are stronger than they are today, and there are places that very few know about, like troll preserves or flocks of thunderbirds flying across the North American deserts. but not many people actually know much about them. They know they exist, and from time to time you'll catch them on social media, and you'll catch Scions, which we'll get onto briefly, on social media. So the belief is still there. And then where the criticism I mentioned like 5 minutes ago now, that if the gods exist and walk among us, why doesn't everyone worship them? The short answer is they can't walk among us, or well, they choose not to. On top of gods being present, there is a force called fate, which I'm reasonably sure everyone is aware of fate to some degree. The gods interfering will alter their fate and alter their very selves, which is a problem that I assume will receive full mechanical exploration in Scion God. But for now, we only have Origin here to work with, so I can speculate, but that's all I can do. Suffice to say, they choose not to involve themselves, because if they do, it will go poorly for them. Involve themselves directly and often, I should say. Which brings us to Scions. Scions are the quote-unquote children of gods, and are the primary way through which the gods, let's say, interfere in affairs. Usually to stop titans, but it depends entirely on the pantheon. As I said, some don't have titans. The Theoi, the Greco-Roman gods, are a family, so they'll just use their Scions as pawns against each other because they're a family and they fight. But Scions are the children of gods, not always, flesh and blood children. There are four kinds of Scion. You've got born, which is you are just the child of a god. Whether that was a one-night stand, a short relationship, a long relationship, whatever. One of your parents is mortal, the other is divine. And you were born. You are the result of that union. Chosen, where you start mortal, a god takes an interest in you and grants you the potential to become divine, to gain legend with a capital L, quickens ichor in your veins, etc. These are all terms that we'll be exploring. It will be on the test. Pay attention. Incarnation, where you are actually an aspect of that god, whether you know it or not. One of the pre-generated characters in the book is an incarnation of a god. And created, where you are made, where the god makes you, which is cool and all that. Having that flexibility is great, and it means that you can explore different kinds of stories about what it means to be human in the context of finding out that you were never human to begin with, kind of thing. Oh, sorry. And all of that is powered by the story path system. 1 second, need a drink. By the way, if you ever want any clarification or repetition, feel free to ask. I am monitoring chat. The story path system. So Scion 1E was a bit different. I believe it used the storyteller system, and that system was never really designed for god level stuff. It was fun, don't get me wrong, it was a fun game. That's why I got into 2nd E, 2E, whatever. But for 2E, a whole new game system came in, the story path system. The story path system is very similar. You build a pool of D10, you roll them, you count successes. Dice pools are done through skills and attributes, as with some other Onyx Path games. Rated 1 through 5. You count up how many dots you have in the relevant field with a small f. Capital F field is something else in mechanics. You roll them. Target number is 8 at origin level. You count how many 8s, 9s, 10s you've got. 10s you roll again. They count as a success and you roll again. And then that gives you a total number of successes. Before going on to what you can use successes for, however, the dice pools themselves. So obviously in a lot of games, we'll go with the standard example of you want to punch something. So dice pools in this are incredibly flexible. So punching is covered by the close combat skill, as you'd expect. But you have the choice of any of your 9 attributes if you can, I guess, A, narrate it, and B, persuade the story guide that this is how it works for your character. So you have the choice of the 9 attributes to determine what attribute you roll with a close combat skill. So traditionally, you'd use might. That's your, physical brawn. You could use dexterity if you're more about darting around and throwing a few jabs rather than one-sword haymaker. You could use stamina to just soak up any return punishment to get that one good hit in. But you could also use other things. So you could use cunning by studying their... I'm opening my rulebook to the character sheet just so I don't misspeak. You could use cunning by studying their fighting style and exploiting weakness, or intellect by calling on high levels of training you have. Obviously, when you get to social skills attributes, it gets a bit more awkward. But even there, the manipulation, you could be feinting, trying to force them into moving a certain way to exploit that weakness, or composure if you're just trying to keep a calm, balanced exterior to throw them off their game slightly. And presence, I guess, would be the please don't hit me and break my pretty face roll. But the flexibility of the system is one of the main draws for me. I am one of those gamers who much prefers a flexible system so you can approach any problem with a variety of means. And because you have the 9 attributes to choose from, each of which is categorized by approach of power, finesse, and resilience. So you could do one fight where you're exploiting weaknesses through cunning, and then another fight where you're just dodging and weaving and then throwing light punches with dexterity. And they're both finesse attributes, but 2 different fighting styles. Obviously, if you prefer your games more concrete, that might not float your boat as much, but the flexibility means that you can get some really great out there ideas, which we'll be exploring shortly. So the successes, as I said, you count up how many 8s, 9s, 10s you've got. That's your pool of successes. Each action that you're trying to take has a difficulty. This is just the number of successes you need to succeed at the action. You can do mixed actions, which we won't get into, but they involve combining 2 or more actions. This is just a very, very high-level rules overview to make everything following make sense and to explain what the game is. So difficulty is just how many successes you need to buy off, but how many successes you need to complete the action. If you get fewer successes than that difficulty, you get a consolation. Usually it's a point of momentum, which is at the end of this line right here. That goes into a shared pool where you can just add dice to pools or do minor tweaks to other things. If you get no successes and at least 1-1, you get a botch, which is like a dramatic failure from other Onyx Path games. You get 2 points of momentum. However, you do not need to get momentum on a failure. A failure, and again, something I really like about the system, much like Powered by the Apocalypse games, is that you fail forwards. No matter if you fail at what you're trying to do, something else happens. So you might just get momentum. You get a resource that you can spend at a future time to better your odds. Or you might discover some important information you didn't know you were lacking. Or you might meet someone that is going to be important later. I can't remember the third example, but there's a third example. So even if you don't succeed at the action, something still happens, whether now or later down the line. Complications. So, let's say you've got 6 successes on a difficulty 3 roll. So you buy off the difficulty. You've got 3 successes remaining, but on that roll there was a 2 complication thing. So, example again from the book, trying to climb a wall or a fence with barbed wire at the top. Climbing the wall is your difficulty. The barbed wire is a complication. You've got enough successes that you climb the wall. That's fine. You're going to climb the wall no matter what. Your choice then becomes, do you climb the wall and keep those successes to make it look spectacular, to do it with flair? Or do you spend 2 of your 3 remaining successes to buy off the barbed wire complication so that you climb the wall. You do an okay job at it. It's not terribly amazing, but you still climb the wall. But more importantly, you don't tear your hands open on the barbed wire. If you opt to keep the 3 successes, good morning, Gehenna Gaming, and don't buy off the complication, you're going to gain at least an injury condition from tearing open your hands on the barbed wire. So that's what a complication is. It's something that makes the task harder without affecting your chance to fail at it. Enhancement is almost the opposite of that. An enhancement is something you usually gain from people helping you, from stuff set up previously in the scene, from items, equipment, or knacks, boons, whatever. As long as you get a success, an enhancement is just a set number of additional successes. So an item might give you, the rulebook just simplifies it to successes as S, difficulties D, complications as C, enhancements as E. So an item might give you plus 2E. So as long as you get 1 success, that plus 2 enhancement means you get 3 successes on a roll. There is a limit to the number of enhancements you can get, because after a certain point, you're not going to fail anything. Something I didn't write down on my notes that, maybe I should have done, is after you've bought off your difficulty, your complications, you factored in all your enhancements, then you do stunts. Stunts are narrative flair, twists, what have you. The most basic one is inflict damage. So you beat your opponent's defense and you have, say, like 2 successes. You can spend 1 on inflicting damage to give them an injury condition and 1 to do something else. Or you could save the 2. I believe disarm is a 2 success stunt. So rather than inflicting damage on them, you tear the gun out of their hands. That kind of thing. Stunts are how you affect the world around you in certain circumstances. And depending on what knacks you have, what I think boons give you options for stunts. And we will be also exploring how to create a stunt. Probably not today, but certainly at a later date. They're just cool ways of affecting the world around you that are codified in the rules or the material that you'll be using. And then finally, flexibility in creating material from scratch, i.e. new gods and pantheons. Or pantheons. So, pulling back the curtain of this behind the curtain show, I'm hoping towards the end of maybe not a Rude Awakening, which is what this chronicle is going to be called. Maybe towards the end of the follow-up, because my plan is to do an Origin Chronicle and then a Hero Chronicle before moving on to a different game system, is to create a pantheon. I have an idea for one. I need to do some research, but it should be fine. So that'll be that in granular detail. But essentially, all a god is you have a god that you want to do. You pick 3 callings for it, to like divine archetypes. Handful of purviews that seem thematically appropriate, and boom, you've got a god. This is highlighted in the same character in the rulebook that is pre-gened, that is an incarnation. The god that character is an incarnation of isn't presented in the appendix for Origin or the Pantheon chapter in Hero, but it just explains how you do it, and it's really simple. As 3 callings, couple of purviews, you're done. So does anyone have any question about that extremely rushed, probably slightly slurred overview of the game before we get started? Or want to add anything to what I said? Also, anyone who is a vaguely official representative of Onyx Path, are you okay with me showing A, the character sheet on screen, and B, the PDF of the rulebook, just so that we can witness things together? Check my notes, make sure I'm not missing anything. Nope. While waiting for an answer for that question, or those questions, this is a holdover from how I started with role-playing. So I started with New World of Darkness. The Blue Book was the first role-playing rulebook I bought for myself. So whenever I'm writing anything, really, and this is something I, if you do go follow the playlist that was linked in chat to my D&D stuff, I talk about this a fair amount, but themes and moods, it helps me organize my thoughts and to give direction to what I'm writing. And what I'll probably do is, for the, I guess, quote unquote final release, although it'll be up to, playtesting and editing and whatnot of this chronicle, I'll try and include some notes about my reasoning behind the themes and the moods included, but they'll definitely be mentioned, maybe in an introduction or like a first page summary. But it helps to give direction to anything you're writing if you have something you want to explore with it, whether that's a narrative idea or like a mental health problem that you have experience with that you want to either explore yourself more fully or help other people understand. Obviously, when you're doing something like that, please do the research. Please handle it sensitively. Please make everyone aware what you're doing, or ask if they're okay for you to do it first, and then make everyone aware. However, for the purposes of this, from the name, A Rude Awakening, you can probably guess that something's going to go down that isn't comfortable. The themes being explored will be sudden awareness. This is of the world with a capital W. This is of themselves. So the next... 1 second, don't want to misspeak. Yep, the next step after explaining the themes and moods will be character creation. I've made 5 pre-gens. We'll be doing a 6th together so that you can see how character creation works and how I approach it. Because even as the story guide, GM, whatever, you still need to make characters. So it would be a sudden awareness of self, of an aspect of self that wasn't previously known. Changing the status quo. This is less, anarchism, brouhaha, passion, that kind of thing, and more just this was our understanding of the world now, our understanding of the world, and that's changed. And where do we then fit into the new status quo as Scions? And then Revelations, obviously, is the fuel for the previous 2 points. I'm anticipating that this won't be a very long document and maybe take like 2 of these streams to create fully and then a couple of weeks for me to edit to my satisfaction. But it's based on the premise that... It's predicated on the premise that the player characters don't know they're Scions, and they don't really know much about Scions. They might know celebrity Scions, the one in the rulebook is Donny Rhodes. So they'll know that Scions exist, but they won't really know that they are Scions themselves until, oh, hey, I'm your divine parent. So that's something that we'll be discussing towards the end, will be visitation scenes for each of the characters. But that's... So in terms of the, the confusion versus understanding, I'm never very good at defining what's a theme and what's a mood. To me, confusion is the mood, as is understanding, and there's 2 conflicting moods. But this could equally just be a theme. It's up to you. Depends on your interpretation. But the confusion then would be, I'm a normal person. Why is all this happening to me? And then, hopefully, through the few scenes of the introductory chronicle, we'll reach at the understanding that it's happening to me because I'm now part of the world, the larger world. And, creatures of legend are present in my life because of who I am. So, I know it took an extra half hour to get to where I wanted to be at the end of last stream. So, go me. That was good. And I'm going to ask this at the end of every section, but really, any questions, feel free to ask them as the text says at any point. Right. How to show this? I think we'll do this. So, just make sure. Nope. Make sure I'm on the right page, right tab. Okay. Yeah, this is a public accessible resource. This should be fine to show. Go back to scenes. Say goodbye briefly to the Google Doc, by the way. Where is it? Window capture. There we go. There we go. So this is the official Scion character sheet. I will take this time to address something. Down here, I mean, I guess I could zoom in. We won't get to this point until the end of the character creation process, but down here, this injured slot, I believe, should be another bruised slot. On the hero sheet, there are 3 bruised slots, because based on what your stamina is, you get up to 3 bruised conditions. But this is what it is on the official sheet, so that's something to be aware of. So if you were like me and you're flicking through the rulebook trying to figure out where that second injured slot comes from, I think it's supposed to be a bruised slot. I'm happy to be corrected, but as I say, on the hero sheet, there are 3 bruised and only 1 injured. But this is the official sheet. It's form fillable PDF. If you buy the, I believe if you buy the PDF through like Drive-Thru Gaming, you'll get this with your rulebook download. You'll also get just a plain printable version and some errata, I think, but I could be wrong because I backed this on Kickstarter, so I might have something different. I don't know. If you already have the rulebook in paper version, Mr. Gon has made these, I believe. It's like mrgon.rocksolidshelves.com or something, and they're available for download from there. But for those of you like me who have terrible handwriting, form fillable PDFs are a godsend. Joke sort of intended. So, character creation in Scion. Just let me pull my notes up so I don't misspeak. As with most character creations, start with a concept. I'm just going to do something behind the scenes. The only decision I've made so far for this character, which is where all of you fine folk come in, is that they will be a Scion of Inari. Purely because make the representation you want to see in the world. Yep, cool. That's not showing up. Excellent. So, concept. I want them to be a Scion of Inari and ideally have the healer calling. In terms of concept, so where did my notes go for the other characters? So I made, as I've said, I made 5 characters. This is entirely because I run a 6-player game, which of like a 6-player home game, not of Scion, but of another game. So I want to be able to provide character sheets for up to 6 players. It means if you have a smaller group, everyone has at least one choice. Well, at least 2 to choose from. The other concepts are award-winning musician, everybody's friend. So it's just a short phrase or idea that you could build a character around. Everybody's friend became a therapist. Diamond in the rough, who became a pilot. Doctor without hope, the doctor, and cyber anarchist. So from those, like, they tell you everything you need to know about a character at a glance. There's no space on this character sheet to record them, so it's something that you should just either write down on a piece of notepaper or, if you prefer, scratch paper, so that whenever you're making a decision during character creation, or even afterwards, you have that core truth of the character. Obviously, if you're leaning more into the gemming, the story guiding, whatever it's called in the game that you're running, from now on, I'm going to stick with Scion's terminology for story guiding. You don't need to do this for every character. Most NPCs won't need a full character sheet. There's stuff that we'll get onto at a later point, TM, about how to make custom NPC antagonists, which just have highly simplified versions of a character sheet. And then a lot of the time you won't even need a sheet. Maybe a rough idea of what that character's main interest in life is, whether it's horticulture, firing guns on a weekend, or brewing ale, whatever. And you just assign a number of dice to that, or you could even make it even simpler on yourself. Just divide that number of dice by 3 to be that's the average successes they'll have. I think that's how it works. In my head, doing some quick maths. So if you don't feel like rolling yourself, just every NPC will probably have a 1, 2, 3, or probably 4 difficulty to compete with player characters. But every character should have a concept. Whether it's wholly original or not is, of course, entirely up to you. As there are no new plots, there are no new characters. Given enough time, research, and dedication, you will probably be able to find a character archetype that fits any character you can think of. So embrace it. Just go for it. Your archetype might not be different, but how you express characters at the table will be. This, obviously, whole section about character creation will work for players as well. So if you have players struggling to make a character in Scion, feel free to point them toward this section of the video. Bit of a self-plug. So, concept. As I said, award-winning musician, everybody's friend, diamond into the rough, doctor without hope, cyber anarchist. So we need to nail down a concept for this Scion of Inari. Unless anyone has any better ideas, I was just going to go with naive hedonist. So, someone who enjoys having a good time, but doesn't really know the consequences of their actions. And immediately started working out how to make Dorian Gray. So, that's where my mind's at right now. So, as I say, unless anyone has any better ideas, obviously stream delays a thing. I'm just going to write it down as a guiding principle throughout the rest of the character creation process. Something I'm also going to do, which is important now. So I'm just going to use the name Ash to start with, as it's gender neutral. So many windows? That one. Something I'm going to do with the characters for the final release, because I'll include all 6 sheets. I believe our very own Plastic Age Plays posted about this in the DM's Go Creator Circle. But rather than give a gender, just use the pronouns that they use. So Ash, for instance, will be they, them. The others will be he, him, she, her, whatever. But it's just a subtle change from saying this is their gender to this is the gender they identify as. But representation is important. Diversity is important. Making characters which are real is important. Otherwise, you just end up in that echo chamber of, the group that I used to play in, like, power fantasy, straight white power fantasy of either male or female. And obviously, if you want to explore other genders and other relationship types, that's something that you should probably talk to your other players about. That's a conversation that is a hot topic right now in the tabletop gaming world, and this isn't the place for it, but suffice it to say, if you want to explore things like that, make people aware of it. People might be okay with gay relationships, but might not be interested in exploring them themselves, if that makes sense. So, Chronicle, I'm going to leave that blank so that if people want to use these characters for other Chronicles, because they're just pre-gens, they can. Same with Player. Obviously, I'm not going to invent a player name. That's where the player puts their name. And Parent, as I said, it's going to be Inari. This Scion, I decided, is created. So, out of the pre-gens, there is an incarnation, a chosen I mean, there's at least one representative of each of the other Scion types. So Ash is created by Inari. And obviously, that's something that you could explore at the tabletop whenever a player gives you something like this. Especially going back to the themes and moods of the Chronicle, where they don't know they're different. Always be kind of questioning what your players know about their characters. Some players will have pages and pages of backstory written up, and that's fine. Some players will have none written up, and that is equally fine. Always just be questioning what your players know about their characters. If you make decisions about the character, I mean, it's kind of leave it up to common sense whether or not to ask the player if they're okay with those decisions. So the minor things are probably fine. So as an example, because that's the whole point of this entire thing, is to provide examples and context for the other videos and articles and GM tips you can find. One of my D&D players, she gave me no backstory. Well, she gave me 3 sentences of backstory, I think it was. And essentially gave me carte blanche to do whatever I wanted with the character. So I made some decisions without her input. Like, the character would be offered a position in this. They're magic police, essentially. They police magic. Or that they had a friend growing up on the streets that they would meet later, because those are things that you can reasonably assume. And with the offering of position, I didn't ask the player if the character would be interested in that, because it's going to be just an in-character choice, yes or no. Other things, like your parent is dead, obviously that could affect how they roleplay. Or you were betrayed in the past, again, that could affect how they roleplay. So things like that, it's probably worth clearing with your character. With your player first. If you can clear it with your character, you've broken the rules of narrative physics as we know them. Well done, you. So when, in this instance, if you are just using these character sheets without the Chronicle, or you're just using this part of the Chronicle and not whatever Rude Awakening Chapter 2 ends up being called, because I'll probably give the 2 an overarching, name, so it'd be name, a Rude Awakening. My goal is to revisit these characters when Demigod and God come out as well, so that you could do the entire, the entire thing in one go with the same characters. But if you're just using these characters, or you've used the characters for a Rude Awakening, and then you decide to move on to Demigod, figure out why that, either independently with the player, or just ask the players to do it, but figure out why they were created, if there was a purpose for Inari creating them. As an aside, I will 100% try to be consistent with my they-them pronouns for both Inari and Ash. If I slip up, I am sorry. I'm pretty used to it right now, having an NB friend, but obviously mistakes do happen. Yeah, so question what you know about the character, question what the player knows about the character, ask how much leeway you've got. So going with the concept of naive hedonist and the fact that they're created, maybe they were created so that they could learn something in particular about the world, either with a capital W or a lowercase w, for Inari's benefit later down the line. Or maybe Inari was just enjoying a night of hedonism with Dionysus and thought it was a good idea to create an offspring. Obviously, with a created character, they're probably going to be an orphan or adopted. So that's also something to consider, to think about. Maybe there are other created Scions that are twins, or any multiple thereof. So that's something to always bear in mind, especially in a game like Scion. To some extent, obviously, Promethean also, because it's about being made and becoming human, as I mentioned last time. Games that have non-typical origin stories, in a way, allow you to ask a lot more questions, and a lot more different questions than you would ordinarily be asking. So if you're not comfortable asking those questions, that's fine. Just treat them as any other Scion. They probably have a parent, or at least a parental figure, or had one that you can just use as a typical parent figure. Or as I say, if you feel more comfortable exploring these kind of themes or ideas, or if the player does, go for it. And if you if you do and you have questions, that's what this is for. I'm always available on Twitter at Comrade Bubbles. I'll be streaming here every fortnight as long as Onyx Path let me. And I stream most weekdays. It's the same. So if you have a question, just hop in chat, ask it, and then leave. That's fine. I like to help where I can. There's no point having all the knowledge if no one is benefiting from it. So no one has suggested any better concepts or names, so we're sticking with a naive hedonist, Ash, they, them, and created of Inari was the one thing I decided on. So which, this one. Not this one. Wrong word doc. This one. Okay, so you'll notice that there is a section, I don't really need my events list, to be fair, because it's not on my channel, so it won't pick up events. Where did the... Sorry, I was rearranging my desktop. So, also, if there are any problems with video or audio, please let me know. I have the stream running, which is something I don't usually do. So it might affect the bandwidth. It shouldn't, because this is just me talking to a camera with some Word documents on screen and a chat box. But if it does, please let me know. So, yes. First thing to decide. You'll notice down here there is a section called Paths. Cool. I'm sorry that I don't look or sound beautiful. Section down here called Paths. Origin characters have 3 paths. They have an origin path, which is their childhood, for want of a better word. Thanks, Moonlight Zero. It's, I guess you could say, it's what helps them. It's their formative years. That's it. It's their formative years. It's how they became who they are now. They have a role path, which is how they define themselves. So I'll go back and after I've covered these 3 paths, I'll give you an example of using the pre-gens I've already made. But it's how they define themselves. It's probably what they do as a career. That's that kind of thing. And then Society and Pantheon path is how they relate to society or their pantheon in particular. It's usually like a group, cult, organizational affiliation, that kind of thing. Each path comes with 3 skills. In the rulebook, some of them have the choice of 4 or 5, and you just have to pick 3 if you want to use the pre-gen paths or suggested paths, for example. Otherwise, much like character concept, it's a short descriptor. You decide what skills associate with it, and boom, there you go. However, your characters always get the skills associated with their pantheon. So, Inari is one of the Kami. And the Kami pantheon skills are close combat, which is here. And you fill in the little black box. If you've printed this out, you colour in the square. These are your path asset skills. The Kami have close combat, and they have culture. But you will notice that's only 2. There are 3. You just get to pick the 3rd one. That's all it is. You can have path asset skills from up to twice. So one of the other paths could also give Ash close combat, for example. So we need to do, first of all, I guess it just makes sense to resolve this lingering question of what the one other skill is. Actually, no, you know what? Example. And then we'll leave that last skill to the last step, because I like making things complicated for myself. So, as an example, when I type up these characters, which I've already done, when I put them in the document to be uploaded to the StoryPath Nexus, I will have a short background for each character, again with their pronouns and their character concept. and any other notes, using their paths to explain their background. So, the award-winning musician, Martina Vasquez, I think it's Vasquez. So her background was bountiful youth. So raised in wealth, bountiful youth. She displayed rare talent with the violin and quickly became a local sensation. And then her role path is ruler of the stage, who teaches disadvantaged youth in her spare time. Her society path, teacher of the young. Can't remember what third skill I gave her for teacher of the young, but there we go. So that's how it all ties together. You've got where they came from, where they are now, how they relate to society or whatever organizations they're a part of. Another example, just to hammer that home, because you should always provide more than one example to back up your work. The second on my list of characters, this in no particular order, it's just the order I made the characters. Michael Kettering. Concept, everybody's friend. Background, as the sole child of a large family, he was doted upon, so his origin path is apple of everyone's eye. As he matured, he wanted to provide others with the attention he was given and trained as a therapist. Role path, a ready shoulder, who spends the odd weekend in the woods, tending to the local cult of Odin's ravens. And then his society pantheon path is Master of Ravens. Michael Kettering, I thought it would be funny. He's an incarnation of Balder, who looks after Odin's ravens. I just found that amusing. I find a lot of very simple things amusing, to be fair. So, let's just approach these in order: origin, role, and society. So, origin. So, they were created. Ash was created, but for this to work, they probably still had a childhood. Or at least they remember having a childhood. Whether they actually had one or not is, obviously, again, something that you can explore through play. So with the sole proviso that an origin path is a short descriptor with 3 skills associated with it, and you get contacts and connections and stuff, hence this box and effects. For this, I'm following the model of the pre-gens in the rulebook. I'm leaving those blank because players should define those things. But if a path gives you access to something that would be relevant to that path, so if you have a path relating to the police, as in you're a member of the police force, you get access to a police station. Once per session or more, if you accept penalties, you can access those connections and contacts. And then once per session, you can also add 2 dice to rolls in which the experience from that path would be applicable. Successes based on that roll can be applied to twists of fate. These are ways which your connection to that path and to fate with a capital F can alter the situation you find yourself in slightly. So you can add or remove one detail from the scene based on however many successes you have. So there could simultaneously be a gun on the table no one noticed before, and the bad guy runs out of rounds in his magazine at the same time. That kind of thing. Minor twists that give you control over the narrative because of fate. So that's what a path does, and how it's structured. I will take. Well, I mean, so as I mentioned, the rulebook does have a list of paths with suggested skills and contacts. I think suggested contacts. 1 second. Oops. I built all of the other pre-gens were built using the paths from the book. So I thought there we go. Yeah, connections and skills for each path. It gives you examples for origin and role. It doesn't give you examples for your society and pantheon path because those are just so different. It does also tell you how you can handle pre-visitation Scions and supernatural origins. But that's fine. I've just noticed that one of the references to mythology and pre-visitation Scions is to Cain and Abel. Interesting. I guess it's just a motif that's how many paths does it have? The book, it has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 examples for origins, and 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 for role. But they're extremely vague. They're designed to be examples that you can use if you want to. So, for example, military brat. I may have given you the wrong number for origins. Never mind. There's a large number for origins, a small number for role. So, for example, you've got adventurer. You're a kid who explored, or chosen and created would just fit for Scions who know that they're chosen or created. Life of privilege, which is what both a bountiful youth from the Martina example was, and I believe Apple of Everybody's Eye from Michael's was also a life of privilege. I just used those whole cut from whole cloth, or you military child, or things like that. So there is a lot to work off of. Yes, it's very versatile. However, obviously, we're not here to use from the book. We're here to show you how you do it yourself. So, does anyone have any off-the-cuff ideas for an origin path for this naive hedonist? It doesn't have to be terribly descriptive. We can work on that. Otherwise, I'm going to be thinking of one while I refresh myself, because my throat is a bit scratchy. Also, if you are GMing, always have a drink on hand. Or playing, really. I also second Plastic Age Plays comment. It's very versatile. And it's all very high-level stuff. It's just a description about, like, a longish paragraph about the definition of what that title is, example connections, and 3 skills. You know what? Is there any objection from any of the mods for me to show what I'm talking about? Because I have the PDF of the rulebook open as well. I just can't. If I flick over to the tab, the Streamlabs will capture it, so that people like Moonlight Zero have an idea of what I'm talking about. I'm going to just be thinking about path descriptors. Go for it. Cool. So this is going to look horrible because I sized the window for the character sheet and then realized that the rulebook obviously has bookmarks on the side. But this is the chapter you want, character creation, and then paths, and then origin paths. And then if I get rid of this, so it shunts everything back into the right place. So let's go to the next page. So here we go. Let's say military brat down here. So title of the path, paragraph of description about what your character could potentially be like. I'll read it out loud for accessibility for people who have this on at work. So, military brat. Your character grew up with strong military influences. Maybe his parents were in a branch of the military, or maybe he was a troubled youth and had to attend a military academy. Either way, he had a strict upbringing with a lot of guidance and structure. He learned about respect, loyalty, and how to defend himself. He may have decided to join the military himself or go to college in an attempt to leave that life behind. Either way, he's still connected to that life. So there's your description. Also, ignore this box up here. That's just more advanced mechanics stuff. You've got a description, then you've got your list of potential connections, a past teacher, a military commander, steadfast friend, and then military brat again, for example, has the skills culture, leadership, and technology. So those are the 3 things that being a military brat kind of gave you growing up. So the full list is, again, these are intended as examples. And this is the other bits of this chapter about how you use them, but for what we need right now. So, adventurer. Chosen and created, obviously those are Scion related. Life of privilege, military brat, Potemkin world. So that's like a fake world. like the Jim Carrey movie Truman Show. Child of the Streets, Suburbia, Survivalist, Terra Incognita. Again, that's more of an about the world situation because you grew up in a place outside the world. Terra Incognita are usually linked to the gods and their realms. So Valhalla, for example, is a Terra Incognita. Tir na Nog, that kind of thing. War-Torn is the last example origin. And then there are a few role paths, like I said. You've got, as I say, the following are example. But charismatic leader, combat specialist, detective, medical practitioner, pilot, sneak, technology expert. These are, I believe I used all of these, apart from combat specialist and detective for the pre-gens. Some of them, because I wanted to do all of this more, custom stuff on stream. So I just use the examples for the off-stream stuff. But they highlighted the fact that not every archetype is going to fit for your concept. So I had to do some rationalization with myself about how a charismatic leader would be a prima donna, for example, a ruler of the stage, if you will. Going back to the Martina example. So these are your paths anyway. And as I say, there is no example of society path. Ignore this box. It just tells you how to deal with being a legendary creature or supernatural, previously existing supernatural creature, person, and pre-visitation Scions. However, if you get stuck at any point, if you go down to... Nope, click the arrow. The character creation process is a 6-step process, as you can see. And then get rid of this again. And if you have the book, it does walk you through it. Each step it has an example for Colwyn, Little Mao, and then in Hero to Scion of Loki. Tells you what they are. So paths represent a series of decisions characters have made or experience they have. So that's fine. Origin path is their background, where and how they got started. Doesn't have to refer to their upbringing, but it's formative. Role path is how they define themselves, as I said. And then the societal pantheon path is the connection with each they have to an organization, cult, group, or one of the pantheons. Something to be thinking about with all of these was that they obviously don't know that they're... How about they grew up in rough environments, so they had to learn to fight? Yeah, that works. Do you want to be using one of the... Oh, okay. So, for now, we'll just title it Grew Up Rough. But, which does tie in to the... Because I think I mentioned I'd like them to have the healer purview because it's just something that no other character has. But so they grew up rough. So that immediately suggests close combat. Maybe medicine. They had to learn how to treat their own wounds. And so I'm just making the list of these three so that we can make sure that they aren't covered more than twice. Survival, maybe, as the third option, as the third skill. That's not how you spell that. This is what I was on about last time. I will make typos. I'm a proofreader, by the way, so I'll try to catch all my typos, but typing on stream while talking, also with a microphone in front of my keyboard, is quite difficult. So there we go. So their origin is they grew up rough. Probably alter that slightly as a more descriptive thing, but that's fine. Good suggestion, Moonlight Zero. So that's their origin. Their role is probably something to do with hedonism, whether it's a DJ or like a maitre d'. I kind of I want to go away from drug dealer. I'll be honest, but that's just my personal preference. Inari being more of a wealth, prosperity, and luck deity, as well as rice. Gotta love rice. And I think if they're created, then so growing up rough. How about this? There we go. Child of the system. So, foster family didn't treat them well or whatever. If you are okay with that interpretation of your idea, Moonlight Zero. Maybe learn to fight to protect people that can't. Okay, so they have that. They have a double-edged life of doing what they can to help people, but also, I mean, I also, of course, I'm happy to change the concept. Like that's no big deal. Not use the word guardian. That has mechanical meaning. We'll just put protector of the week for now. So again, that will be close combat, which, well, we can't have close combat for one, because that comes from potentially child of the system and the Pantheon path. Nothing to say athletics for more kind of running, maybe. Leadership, probably. Here's where we find out what kind of form-fillable PDF this is. Will it just stop allowing me to enter characters, or will it just shrink the text so that no one can read it? So we've got a choice here then. I'm obviously completely open to suggestions about the skills, but athletics and leadership, if you're in a position where you've come through the system, I'm fortunate enough not to have had to do so I'm working entirely off stereotypes here. So if anyone has and wants to lend their expertise, please do so. But you've come through the system, you know how to defend yourself through not necessarily being, abused in the home, but through being bullied, that kind of thing. And you've decided that you want to prevent that from happening to other people. Leadership makes sense. Maybe not athletics then. Maybe integrity. So, like moral standing, moral fiber, not backing down or allowing other people to influence you. Yeah, maybe integrity. Yep. So then the third option, being suggested by this concept, culture, already coming from the Pantheon path, or persuasion, maybe. I could go, or even empathy. Well, I'm mulling that over, and while everyone else is mulling that over, I'm just going to write Pantheon path here. CC and culture. That looks wrong, but it's correct. That also says integrity. Tiny text. Although again, like this is just my idea. This is how I would approach it. Also because I know what other characters there are, which I have an advantage over all of you. But having that idea of protecting people and being created by a deity of benevolence doesn't immediately, to me at least, suggest violence as the go-to option. It's more about talking things out, building relationships, using the system against it to defend those that it usually or can fail in a way. Ow. And again, there's nothing wrong with Protector of the Week. I think it lacks narrative oomph. It's not as flavorful in a way as it could be. I think Shield of the Lost or something like that is stronger. But again, personal preference, your mileage may vary. I know people who would struggle with this kind of situation, with creating narratively important and impactful descriptions. I'm glad I'm not the only one. I'm going to tentatively put persuasion here. Okay, so it's one of those. It doesn't do either of the things I said. It just I made it smaller. Now no one can read it. Yeah. So I put persuasion just as a temporary thing. So then your organized society or pantheon path, how they relate to an organization, a group. Maybe some formal worship of Inari is involved. Inari is, I believe, one of the, if not the most widely worshipped kami. It's also something to consider is that clearly I am English. I identify as British because I'm not terribly hung up on nationalism, but I'm from the UK. I am anticipating the largest market would be American for any product. Certainly Onyx Path products are very rare over here in shops. We're more likely to get Warhammer because that's based in the UK. Or D&D, obviously, being the world's biggest, most popular role-playing game right now. Call of Cthulhu, things like that. We do get vampire books occasionally for Masquerade. Hey again, see ya. That's not Cthulhu. That's your own. Looking cool. Oh yeah, I obviously clearly used dark mode. Anyway, what was I saying? Yes, so the Chronicle will be set in, let's just go with Hollywood America. It's like an interpretation of America from a non-American's point of view based entirely on media. That said, none of the characters so far are trained in firearms, so who knows? But whenever I run a game set in America, I'd have a fake city I use, so it'll be set in that fake city, and I'll make up loads more fake cities just to not tread on anyone's toes. But if you want to put it in whatever city you know, go ahead, do it. The scenes will be flexible enough and not tied to fake locations. Also, it's the world with a capital W, so you can take liberties. So Ash could be American, and Ash might not be their birth name either. That might just be the name they took themselves. I wanted this character because I am making it with the help of all of you. I wanted this character to be not like iconic of the Chronicle, but all the characters in some way I hope are representative of what's being explored, and this is just about reinvention, changing the status quo. They have formed their own identity, obviously being NB, probably gender fluid, involves a lot of reinvention sometimes. So certainly from my experiences and from, as I say, knowing NB people. NB, for those who don't know, is non-binary. It's just easier to say NB. So something we could think about if we wanted to is how much they identify as Japanese. Maybe they were fostered in America, so they grew up American. Also, of course, setting something in America means that a lot of people just get certain things, whereas thanks to internet awareness of things like that, whereas some British slang and mannerisms don't have such a wide awareness. Anyway, back to what I was saying. So set in America. So we could discuss or decide how much Ash identifies as Japanese. They will certainly probably look Japanese, as Inari is a kami and Japanese in, I guess, mantle. Legend. I guess their legend would be Japanese. So whatever we decide is their probably organization, society path. It wouldn't be pantheon path. Or it might be much like what Michael's was. But how much we decide this path is or isn't influenced by how they perceive themselves as being American or Japanese, or mixture of both cultures. The path somehow has to teach them close combat and culture. Obviously, the easiest way to do that would just be martial arts, which I'm not averse to, but again, never be afraid to take the easy way out if you are stuck for ideas. Also, because this stream did start like 20 minutes later than it should, if people want me to, and by people I mean Onyx Path people, want me to do the cut at 4 as it was supposed to, that's fine by me, or I can just keep going for an extra 20 minutes after 4. It's entirely up to you guys. This is your channel. Anyway, so there's nothing wrong with taking the easy option. It's right there. Probably close combat, culture, athletics maybe. Or we can do something else. We can think of some other organization path descriptor relationship that would include close combat, culture, and something else. I don't have anything on after this, so it makes no real odds to me. I want to give the people the 2 hours they were expecting, or that they should, that we are classically training you to expect. I just wasn't sure if I was okay to start without a mod, that was all. Anyway. And this is the joy of having the chat beneath my face. You can see what I'm talking about. So we have 2 ways to approach this. And obviously this is something I had to do anyway when I was pre-genning the other characters, because there are no pre-existing Pantheon organization paths, whatever. We can figure out what skill we would like Ash to know, add it to the list of close combat and culture, and then reverse engineer how they would know that skill. Or we can come up... Cool. Thank you. I'll do that then. If I need to. I might. I probably will. Because we're going through knacks and things. Or we could come up with the descriptor of the skill and then figure out figure out what skill best fits that descriptor. So... What are people feeling? I can talk through my thought processes for both, so that doesn't impact me in any way, but this is a communal thing. And I'm feeling acutely in the spotlight, and I'm panicking, and I'm liable to start babbling at any moment. Equally, I'm happy to babble. Doesn't matter to me. Ooh. No, I like this Moonlight Zero. I like this. So, building on that idea, what if they're hopefully the microphone didn't pick that up. What if their organizational path is that they aren't a formal member of law enforcement, but they help intervene with ex-gang members or in trying to settle conflicts of that nature? So they have the experience, they might be known in that world, but they're definitely trying to stop and to heal local communities. Like to stop gang violence and to heal local communities. So what would that be? Does that work? Soul of the community? Mostly asking these questions because this was definitely the step that took me the longest with the other characters. I spent like up to 15 minutes trying to think of something. And again, having everything that I do, I want to be a conversation. It's back and forth between you and I. Want to make something that is a community, and it's, don't get me wrong, actual plays are great, and I love actual plays and interacting with the cast of actual plays and stuff. But I just want to highlight the other side of role playing for people who are curious about that, because I know there are people curious about that, because I was at one point, and I've had people ask about things like that, and my website gets traffic, so you know. So if that's an idea everyone's okay with, then that's probably just going to be leadership again. So close combat's in 2 of them, leadership's in 2 of them, and that's it. Which is good, because now we have the slightly trickier thing to do of figure out how important these paths are to them. So we've got their 3 paths. That's fine. Now we have to decide which path is the one that they use to define themselves the most. I'm almost certain Soul of the Community is probably their primary path. And then they have a secondary path and a tertiary path. Again, almost certain that Child of the System is their tertiary path. It's something that they can do. It's experience that they draw upon, but it is beyond the other 2. So luckily we have 5 slots. So I'm just gonna do this and then move them all up 1. Move them up 2. Sorry. Again, this is the joy of form-fillable PDFs. There's no rubbing out. You can just select everything and delete it as appropriate. So close combat culture, and leadership. Oh, these boxes, you fill them in when you've used the path for the session as well. So Soul of the Community. These are the 3. Oh, I should actually make a note of that. Otherwise, I will 100% forget. So origin path was Child of the System. Role path was Shield of the Lost. And then Soul of the Community. Sorry, I'm just updating my notes so I don't forget when it comes to doing the actual write-up. I'll update the rest of the notes with the other stuff later. Okay, back to the character sheet then. Nope, that's not the character sheet, that's the rulebook. Back to the character sheet. So Soul of the Community, because it's their primary path, they just get 3 points in every skill. So I always go from right to left just so I don't forget how many they're supposed to have. And same thing for Shield of the Lost. Integrity, Leadership, and Persuasion. You indicate their path asset skills, and they get 2 dots in those skills. You'll notice Leadership is now at 5. Hoo boy. You can't ever go above 5. That's why there's 5 dots. You know what? Let's do it this way. For some reason, I like going right to left. I guess it's just because I write left to right, so going right to left is, to my mind, deleting things. But quirks and everything. And then Child of the System, because it's the tertiary, they get 1 dot. So close combat, medicine, and survival. As I say, this each path gives you contacts, gives you resources, whatever. You define them when you call upon them in gameplay. That's what that's for. So, this is the hardest part for me in any, I guess, Onyx Path game or White Wolf game. Anything that uses specialities. Any skill that starts with 3 dots, so close combat, culture, and leadership, Now it needs a speciality. Unlike in other games, a speciality in, well, certainly Scion, it adds 1 enhancement. Again, that's an automatic success on a roll as long as you succeed at the roll already. It adds 1 enhancement to any other skill that would be that specialty could potentially apply to. So, for the sake of argument, so say leadership would probably be. I don't know if this translates well to non-British audiences. I think it's disadvantaged in other countries. In Britain, deprived is low-income areas. In fact, I think I used disadvantaged on the other one. So I thought there was something wrong there. So there we go. So Ash is good at being a figurehead for the disadvantaged youth, for people from poor areas who might otherwise, fall into with gangs and that kind of thing. Close combat, I guess that's just, is Ash particularly good with any weapon, or do they favour like unarmed combat? There we go. Do they focus on a particular martial art? Obviously, Bushido is the traditional answer there, but again, it depends how much they identify with their Japanese heritage, in air quotes, as to whether or not they would pursue Bushido. And also culture. One day, I will have a computer desk, and my microphone will not be so close to the window. I am sorry about all the background noise if the mic picks it up, by the way. Culture, street culture. That seems to make more sense to me. Close combat, they'd only have 1 dot in it from being a child, and I don't think a child's going to be formally trained, particularly, especially just if they're being bullied at school. Equally, they might be, but it wouldn't be in weapon combat. But equally, I think it would make sense that if they're going into poorer areas to help raise awareness of community programs or youth centers, that kind of thing, that they probably have some self-defense training, maybe with nightsticks, that kind of thing, batons, call them what you will. So I think actually, yes. I can never remember where the accents are in Melee. Bear with me 1 second. There we go. Aha! Circumflex. The circumflex is above the first E, the Q is after the second E. There we go. Just melee with you. Weapons. There we go. In fact, that's too broad. That's way too broad. I guess just bludgeoning weapons would cover like batons and things like that. Because they're not knives. They're not swords. Clubs. There we go. Maybe. Does clubs convey what I'm trying to get across to anyone? Or to everyone, ideally, but one person would be nice. As I say, I really struggle with specialities because in my experience, they're either way too defined or too vague. Oh, good. Someone gets it. Cool. I guess that would also cover short staffs like kendo swords. So that's those clubs make sense. Good. So those are your paths. Those are where your skills come from. They're your experience. They're your, I guess, active skills. No, I mean skills. There. It's your active experience. It's how you convey what you know, what you've learned. Obviously, there is also your attributes section. Attributes are divided into the mental arena, the physical arena, the social arena. Obviously, we're going to have to revisit the naive hedonist concept, but so far, this seems like a social character if they are trying to use the system to help people. So I think it's safe to say that they're going to have their primary arena will be social. So presence is, I guess, magnetism, force of will. Could be physical attractiveness, but equally it could just be way with words, how you get yourself across. Manipulation is how good you are at getting others to do what you want, and composure is how good you are at remaining calm and hiding your emotions and stuff. With 6 dots, we could just do 2 in each. Nope. Like that, for an even balance. But equally, I kind of think they're not as composed as they would like to be, because they identify so much with the people that they're trying to help. So I'm going to take a dot from composure, but I'm going to put it into manipulation. They're very good at getting people to do what they want. And then you could use manipulation with leadership, for example. Also, probably going to end up with an extra dot for presence or composure later in this process. So there we go. So that's their primary arena. Now we have to decide on their secondary and their tertiary arena. I guess really the decision we have to make is how much of their close combat knowledge comes from just kind of training courses, that kind of thing, versus actually pursuing training in that and keeping it up as an active hobby, so to speak. Or if they value their mental capability over their physical attributes. I can see an argument for either way. So, for example, keeping up with your physical stuff, that's going to keep you fit, it's going to keep you healthy, but it's also going to mean that they can defend themselves if anything does happen when they're out doing their job. But then the mental side of things means that they can read up on psychology. They know about the psychology of gang violence or things like that, and so we'll know the best way to approach that kind of problem, or they'll know how to use the system to their own benefit. So I can see an argument for both ways. Both do sound helpful, it's true. To make it even worse, the other characters that I have written up are pretty general. I made 5 characters and I've covered pretty much all the bases with them. The Doctor and the pilot turned out to be surprisingly good at fighting, which was not intended, it just was the way it happened, but equally they're both smart, so there we go. The Anarchist is, I think, the weakest in terms of actual melee skills, but again, it's not about balance, it's about character. And I think if you've grown up in the system and then you're actively using the system to help, you're probably going to be more mental than physical. So, you get 4 dots in your secondary arena. I think they're going to be reasonably balanced in this aspect, but probably either higher in cunning or resolve at this stage of the process. Leaning towards resolve, one, because they're probably going to get extra dots in cunning at the final step of the skills decision, and also, just to start with, they're going to need that self-confidence, that willpower to rise above what life dealt them and to deal with that. Especially, especially as a non-binary binary person growing up in the system, they probably didn't have the best childhood, let's face it. The world is not as tolerant as it could be, unfortunately. So I'm going to put that 4th dot in resolve, which means we have 3 dots to distribute through physical. 2 dots, sorry. 2 dots? 1 dot. No, that's skills. 2 dots, yeah. Misreading my own notes. Whatever will I do next? Sorry, intellect is how much you know. Cunning is like quickness of thought and that kind of instinctual intuition rather than applied knowledge. And then resolve is willpower. Might, obviously, physical is the easiest to explain. Might is strength. Dexterity is your dexterity, how agile you are, and stamina is how easily you can take damage, but also how far you can push your physical body. Going completely the traditional route and like slight stereotype, if this is more kind of based on martial arts training and a child's instinctual fighting, it's probably going to be more dexterity based than might based. Sorry, one sec. Sorry. Nerves. And then an extra point of stamina just because just to help them stay in the fray or in the chase or whatever. I don't mind so much that dexterity is left at 2. Cunning, might, and dex. I don't understand. There isn't. No worries. Do you want it? What did you mean? And then we'll. Like, I'm always open to being persuaded of other things. I know how many dots should be in each area, so. I'm just going to check my notes in the meantime. Oh, sorry, 3 points for physical. Yeah, you get 6 for your primary arena, 4 for your secondary, and 2 for your tertiary. Sorry, it's only 2 dots. So stamina, right, just there, just so that they can keep pushing themselves that little bit more than otherwise would be able to do. Sorry for being unclear about that. I'm entirely open to the possibility I misspoke as well. But your attribute, 6 slots in your primary arena, 4 in your secondary, 2 in your tertiary. However, you'll notice each, line, column, row is the word, has power, finesse, or resistance. This is the approach. This is how you approach using your attributes. Each character has a favored approach, denoted by an asterisk. I'm 100% unconsciously biased towards finesse approaches. I prefer being able to outthink and out-talk people as a person. So you'll notice that manipulation is the highest, and it's a finesse thing. And that's entirely why. But we have to decide on how Ash approaches things. So is Ash just about being smarter than everyone, being stronger than everyone, and being more of a forceful personality than everyone? Or do they prefer to be more relaxed about it, more quick-witted, thinking on their feet, less in the limelight? So that's power and finesse. Or for resistance, do they just keep going no matter what happens? They just push through everything. Again, I'm biased towards finesse, so if left to my own devices, that's what I will pick. However, I believe for the other characters, I did I did a mixture of all 3, so it's not so much of a big deal. They just keep going? Cool. So resolve. So resistance. So no matter what hurdles the system, you get 2 extra dots in in your favorite approaches. I just want to reread something, just to make sure I didn't type the wrong note. Bear with me a second. Sorry about this. I have been known to make incorrect notes before, so I don't want to. I do not want that to be the case while streaming to people. Yep, you get two additional dots to each of the attributes in your favorite approach. So no matter what life throws at Ashe, they just keep going. So their resolve is maxed out, their stamina is maxed out, it is at 4, and their composure is at 4. Now, Ryan, you might be thinking, what happens if, say, for example, finesse had been Ashe's favorite approach? You can't go above 5, you said so. That is true. You just put that dot elsewhere in the social arena. You just move, you get a free dot for that arena, essentially. So, this is where the paths come in. That is, these are Ashe's learned skills, what their experiences have taught them, Sorry, I was looking at something else, and female pronoun, when I was flicking through the rule book. And then this is Ashe's kind of makeup. This is who they are expressed in raw numerical values. So mentally, reasonably smart, reasonably quick-witted, but a willpower to be reckoned with. Not the strongest, averagely strong. They probably have some time doing agility training or whatnot, but they can push themselves if they need to. Socially, the few people will be able to withstand them, especially resolving composure. But pretty good at getting themselves across, at getting the attention, but equally very good at both being quiet and still getting what they want, but also resisting the influence of others. So, for example, if someone was trying to intimidate them, they'd probably be rolling composure and integrity. With 6 dice, you can expect maybe 2 successes. But you use an asterisk, which you can't see because it's zoomed out so far, but you use an asterisk to highlight your favorite approach for your character. So that's the mortal side of it. That's the origin side of it. Going down to the bottom, where it says calling. Oh, also, you should record your virtue. I can never remember the virtues, so I'm just going to cheat and look at the book. But the virtue, each pantheon has a virtue. It is, and I'm going to put them in alphabetical order because it just looks better to me than having them the other way around. Each pantheon has 2 virtues, which kind of dictate how they act. It's a sliding scale, so you go back and forth between the 2. So, for instance, the Kami pantheon virtues are right action and sincerity. I'll just, this is page 162. I'll just show you what I'm talking about. So it's at the back, but virtues, here we go. So the Aesir virtues are audacity and fatalism. The Dewas virtues are duty and conscience. The Kami, sincerity and right action. So all things have a place under heaven, and all things must be done with a full and sincere heart. However, sometimes the right thing is at odds with one's wishes, and sincerity is difficult to achieve. For sake of completion, the Manitous, pride versus dream, the Netja, balance versus justice, the Orisha, tradition versus innovation, the Shen, yin versus yang, Teotl, hunger versus sacrifice, the Theoi, egotism versus kinship, that's the whole family thing, and the Tuatha De Danann, honor versus prowess. So they're usually 2 things which the Pantheon holds in high regard as virtues. Aspiration, things to aspire to, ideals to hold. So as you can see with the Kami, you should always do the right thing, right action, but you should always do it because you believe it's also the right thing to do. sincerity. You have to mean it. You have to believe in what you're doing. And getting the balance between the two is one of the... Oh, yeah, we're being raided. Getting the balance between the two is one of the core kind of character driving effects. When you max out either side of the scale, you get the virtuous condition. Every point of momentum you spend to augment a roll with a virtue receives an additional die. Doesn't come out of the pool. So as I mentioned way at the start, you can spend momentum. You have to have everyone's agreement to do it, but you spend 1 momentum to add 1 die to the pool. Yes, welcome, Time Roller. Thank you for the raid. But you still have to act in line with that virtue. You can't act against it while you have the virtuous condition. And whenever it causes trouble, you get momentum. To get rid of it, you have to act in line with the other end of your virtue scale without acting against your current virtue. It's difficult to get your head around, but it works. It makes sense to me anyway. So that's what. Oops. That's what that is. You should always record it. There's no real... off the top of my head, there's no real guidance given as to where you start. So you can either just start in the middle because it's a 5-dot thing, or just, I guess, make a compelling argument to your story guide as to where you should start on that track. While we're zoomed in this close, actually, deeds. Deeds are things that your character wants to do. So you have a short-term deed, a long-term deed, and a band deed. When you complete one, you mark that off. You get experience for doing deeds. Band deed is usually shared by the band. I can't remember if it applies to short-term deeds, but long-term deeds, you can only you can fulfill it. You can do it. That's fine, but you only get the experience once. You can't get experience that way until everyone's completed a long-term deed. I probably won't type them up on stream, because there's got to be some reason for people to get the finished product, but I'll include band deeds in the finished product. Suitably vague so that they don't give away what's going to happen, but equally something that players could pursue during the Chronicle. Long dead is to overthrow the system. That's true. Yeah, so the next step in the process is calling. So each, I think it's this way. There we go. Each, so in the Origin book, the only information we have on callings of the gods is you go to the appendix. So in the Kami, why did I write close combat for their asset skills? Whoops. Culture and persuasion. Oops. That's my bad. I must have been thinking of something else when I typed that note out. Unless... No, I was thinking of something else when I typed it out. That's my bad. Hang on, one sec. Had an idea. No, I just completely whiffed on that one. Okay. So close combat should be 3 fewer. So that doesn't go there. Persuasion should be 3 higher. Can anyone remember what I did for the other one? If my notes don't tell me, I will simply figure it out off stream by rewatching the VOD. My notes do not tell me. Alternatively, we could just keep close combat. There we go, that makes sense. So close combat against the 3 in the club specialty, persuasion. I just have to figure out which. I'll fix that off stream. I'll leave that as 2 for now. Yeah. That's something I'll fix off stream. Sorry about that. My notes are incorrect. I must have been looking at a different pantheon. Anyway. Yes, for some reason I was looking at the Tuatha. Anyway, so this is your appendix. I'm very conscious of the time. It lists the gods with their callings and their purviews. As a pre-visitation Scion, you get one calling from your parent. So Inari, the Kunitsu of Rice, Fertility, and Foxes, is Creator, Healer, and Liminal. Healer's the one I'm interested in. So you get one dot in the Healer calling. So Healer, you get one dot in it. You can have as many knacks active as you have dots in a calling, but Origins only ever get one dot in a calling, so you can only have one knack active. Knacks are minor supernatural effects based on the calling. So we go down to here. We go down to Healer. And then we see if any of them are suitable for the character that we've been building thus far. So maybe Combat Medic, just in case anything does go wrong while they're pursuing their job. They can help. Just see where these go to. Okay, so this is the full list. So I'm leaning towards the bare minimum or Combat Medic. As ways of, it goes wrong in the field, but you can always help, or they can always help. When you tend to analyze when these battle effects. I think we'll go the bare minimum. I like that. So you just record it as the bare minimum. There we go. For sake of consistency, I've been including the calling they come from, just so people can know where to reference in the book, because there are a couple of knacks that anyone can take. Aura of Greatness, Scent the Divine, and something else. Born to be Kings, Aura of Greatness, Born to be Kings, Scent the Divine, and somebody's watching me. So this is the Deus Ex Machina. My parent helps, which less than ideal, obviously. So you pick a knack. They can, as an origin character, you can only have one knack active. Anyway, so I'm going to include a thing down here for that. And then it's just a bit of personalization. So you get 5 skill dots. You can put wherever you want. I think probably going to be quite empathetic. Have some reading, know a little bit about some things. And again, probably put some time into the gym, probably work out a little bit. So that's 4. Got a 5th one. Probably double up on subterfuge. On survival even. They know a little bit about the world, and they've done weekends away to team building exercises with community centers, that kind of thing. 1 attribute dot. You know what? I could just show you the page. So this is what I'm looking at. Where is it? Each player character receives 5 extra skill dots, an extra attribute dot, and 2 additional knacks or 4 points of birthrights. I'm trying to stay away from birthrights. That's something that... Actually, no, I could do that. Because I'm running out of time. We could do that, actually. We'll pull the extra attribute dot in. Ooh, let's say... Kind of want to reinforce the social arena. But equally cunning. Might be cunning. Social arena because that's their focus. That's what they do. But equally cunning, knowing how to use the system, figuring out weaknesses in the system is tempting. And then, of course, I need to go back and redo the skills, but that's by the by. I think cunning. I think they've figured out. They're quick-witted enough to figure out the weakness of the system and use it to their advantage. And then Yes. We'll do that. So you also get 4 dots of birthrights. Oh, sorry, 2 knacks or 4 points of birthrights. So next time, we'll go through the 4 points of birthrights to finish off this character with the actual, this is how you make stuff process. So just to wrap up quickly, defense is based on the highest of your resilience attribute. So the highest is 5. So down here, defense roll of 5. So rather than being concerned about physical damage, Ash is just able to push through whatever pain they're currently suffering. So that's what that represents. Movement dice, athletics plus the higher of might or dex. It's not going to be terribly high. So 2, 3. And then health, again, this is the stuff. This is what I mentioned at the start of the stream. They have stamina 4, so they have an additional bruised slot. I believe this should be a bruised slot. Because you can get up to 3 bruised. So this is when you take this condition, when you take damage in combat, you don't have a hit point total. You get conditions. Rarely are you bruised, but you might have a sprained leg or a grazed arm. A condition simply adds a complication, which is what the +1 is. It adds a complication to whatever role it would logically apply to. And again, this is something that does draw some criticism because it's not concrete, and some people just like concrete data to work with. So they want either a health pool or a -1 success to everything, that kind of thing. And as I said, different stories for different folks. Open-ended narrative. I love it. I know not everyone does. Anyway, I know it's been a bit rushed towards the end. Does anyone have any questions? As I said, I'll fix this mess off stream. And I will, at the start of the next stream, we'll go through the 4 additional dots of birthright. I'll try and figure out 1 or 2 things that they could have that aren't overtly supernatural. But I will wait for the stream delay to occur. In the meantime, obviously, as I said, there is a Kickstarter going on right now. The Scarred Lands Creature Collection. Handiwork Games and Onyx Path are bringing the best adversaries from the history of the Creature Collection to 5th edition. Scarred Lands Creature Collection 5th edition is a full-colour, 1 creature per page hardcover bestiary for the world's favourite role-playing game. I've been paying some small attention to that Kickstarter. It looks pretty cool. I'm just waiting till payday. It looks cool. Stretch goals are being met, I believe. I'm sure that Plastic Age Plays can throw a link in the chat for that. I can't. I get bot by the moderator. But that's still going on. That'll also show up in the pre-roll for all of these shows, and it'll be in the post-roll, which I'll be swapping over to momentarily. As I say, I am on Twitter. There you go. He hooked you up. I am on Twitter at Comrade Bubbles. If you have any questions, just want to chat. I will be streaming on my own channel in about 10 minutes' time for a short period, just to wind down. If you want to continue any conversations over there or hang out with me, that's just Comrade Bubbles. And this will be up on YouTube in 2 weeks' time. Excellent. Plastic Age Plays, excellent. Hopefully I can get in on that soon. This will be up in a week's time, sorry. No, it won't, actually. I'm on holiday. It will have to go up the day before the next one of these streams on the YouTube channel, where you can then point people towards it and be like, watch this, it's terribly interesting, and how not to stream. Or put yourself down. I think that's it. So, again, thank you to Onyx Path for providing the platform for me to do this. I am sorry that I use a lot of fillers and stumble a lot. No worries. I completely understand. I have loads of projects going as well at the same time. Thank you to Onyx Path for the platform. Thank you to Plastic Age Plays for being a great contact. No worries, Craig Oxborough. Thank you for being here. Again, it is September. Half price subs are a thing, so if you have a bit of money going around, it's, you know, it is what it is. You get the sweet emotes that Plastic Age Plays has been dropping in chat. I love the heart so much. September, Kickstarter, my own stuff. Yeah, I think that's it. So from me, thank you for being here. I guess also from Onyx Path, thank you for being... Is that a Ventru symbol? La Sombra. I always forget La Sombra. Sweet, sweet emotes, indeed. I don't know why I went to Ventru. That's the Gladius and the Scepter. Anyway. Thank you for being here. As I said, if you have any questions, Twitter or my own channel in about 10 minutes' time. I'm going to swap back over to the pre-roll so you can check out what other shows we have currently. But from me, that is all. So, yeah. Thank you.